you're telling me that we've just shut down the country for the second time here in the UK. Where you're telling me that quite possibly the results of the election in America, you're telling me that the whole world has changed because of something that isn't true.
That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
Hello and welcome to Trigonometry. I'm Francis Foster.
I'm Konstantin Kisin.
And this is a show for you if you want honest conversations with fascinating people.
And a very special guest we have for you today. He's the former chair of medical microbiology at the University of Mainz. Dr. Sucharit Bhakdi, welcome to Trigonometry.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really look forward to talking with you about your thoughts on the coronavirus, lockdowns, your book, obviously, which you've written with your wife about it. But before we get into that, tell us, for our viewers who may not be familiar with you, particularly in this country, because you're based in Germany, what is your history through life? Who are you? How are you where you are? What is your expertise and how are you qualified to talk about these issues?
Oh, well, I don't want to talk so much about myself, but I am a born Thai. My parents were in the USA when I was born. That was just after the end of the World War. And my father was a diplomat. And as he was sort of moving around the world, as I have been, so I went to school in Switzerland, then in Egypt, went to the English school in Egypt, Heliopolis, and then to the American college in Cairo. Then I moved to Thailand for 2 years. And finally, after finishing school in Thailand, I went to Germany to study medicine. That was a long time ago. And I graduated from Bonn, the University of Bonn. Virtually, well, after a few years, I went into science and became a laboratory scientist combined with clinical work. So I worked in medical microbiology and infectious diseases all my life, actually. I started doing research, when was that? My God, 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago. And went through the different stages, became professor of microbiology and was called to the chair of the Department of Medical Microbiology at the University of Mainz. That was 30 years ago. Gosh, yes, 30 years ago.
We're making you feel very, very old today. That's the whole point of this interview.
Yes, and I retired 8 years ago. So,
So you've had this long, distinguished career. You've studied medicine. You retire in 2012. It's 8 years later, and now you write a very controversial book. Why aren't you just enjoying life? Why did you feel the need to speak out about what you feel is the problem with how we're measuring coronavirus cases, how we're responding to the virus, and many other issues that you take issue with?
Well, I and my wife are not doing this for fun. We, in March, when the first lockdown was looming, sort of, we thought, this is weird. The situation, there's something wrong about the whole business, the whole story, because it's out of this world. It cannot be true.
Why not? Why do you say that? Every government in the world seemingly has accepted this idea that lockdowns are the way to deal with this. Why isn't it the right solution?
Exactly. That's what we couldn't understand. And that's why we started making these videos, trying to reach out to the public, to everyone in the social media. Since the mainstream media were certainly going the other way, dragging everyone, what is it? Like the Pied Piper, people were following the tone of the Pied Piper, but it wasn't the rats anymore. It was the population all around the world. And we couldn't believe it. So we stood up and said, people, now, why do you believe everything you're being told? Why don't you sit down and read and think a bit? Because if you did that, you would very quickly realize that there's something very, very fishy going on. You started, with the definition of what is COVID-19. Originally, COVID-19 was defined as the severe illness caused by a virus named SARS-CoV-2, all right? It was so complicated that no normal person could understand what was going on. And that was the beginning of the end. Because then, this PCR test came out and became the gold standard for diagnosing COVID-19. Now, anyone who studied, infectious diseases knows that a PCR test cannot be used to diagnose anything. A PCR test is a lab test that may be used to support a diagnosis. So if you think someone is ill, has fever, is coughing, and is short of breath, then it's quite legitimate to do a PCR test to try to find the gene of that virus that you're looking for. And if you find it, or parts of the gene, because a PCR test only looks at parts of the virus genome, very small parts, then it's okay. Then you say, all right, this would confirm the clinical diagnosis. But a real doctor doesn't go around testing people with a test that has never been put on the market for use to diagnose a disease. It's only there to see whether you have parts of this virus genome, sitting around in your throat or your nose. And then the terrible thing was that whenever this PCR test was positive, that person or patient was labeled COVID-19 case. But COVID-19 is the term used for the disease. And that's where everything really started getting crazy, because this virus, that's the second thing, this virus was termed a new virus, and COVID-19 was termed a new disease. But in fact, neither the virus is really new, nor is the disease really new, because the coronaviruses have been with us, with man, since the beginning of mankind. These are viruses that coexist with us. And so every year and every few months, a virus will change a little bit because they mutate all the time. Mm-hmm. They have to mutate, otherwise they can't keep on, going back and forth between you and me and animals or whatever you want. So it's a completely normal thing that these viruses, which are the most successful viruses in the world, together with the flu viruses, by the way, because they manage to keep the host alive. They don't kill the host. They don't want to kill us. They want to come and visit me, and then they want to go and visit the next guy, And in order to be able to do this, they change very little all the time, so that when they come back next year, they can come and visit me again. Otherwise, my immune system, would not allow their entry at all. You see, this is something that people don't really understand. So when we started reading up to see what's going on, we realized that no one knew about this. So we tried to tell the people, a positive PCR does not mean that you are infected. It could mean that you were infected, and now they're just pieces of the genome lying in your throat, and you take a swab and take it out, and then this PCR machine, multiplies that genome. So the number of cycles will tell you how many times this genome has been multiplied. It's like, sort of an alcohol breath test. You drink one mil of vodka, you're not drunk, but if you drink 100, you are drunk. So you get caught in the police control, and you do this breath test, and you've only drunk 1 milliliter. So the police say, okay, keep on going. We see that you did drink a bit, but you drank so little that you didn't reach the red mark.
Finally, you've put it into language Francis can understand, Dr. Bhakdi. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So the PCR machine actually tells you, the number of cycles, the cycle threshold that it went through until the test was deemed positive. But the cycle threshold has never been standardized, So in fact, when the PCR machine says you're positive, it might have just measured 1 mil of the vodka, 0.05, but you're still tested positive. Now, while the police say, okay, keep on driving, your politicians now say you go into quarantine.
But Dr. Bhakdi, I want to ask you a question. So you say there's something fishy going on. Could you expand? What do you mean by that?
It means that the way of, first of all, diagnosing this disease, COVID-19, is at variance with everything that anyone learns in infectious diseases. You're using a lab test to make a very serious diagnosis. All right. Now, as I said, this PCR test will light up if you have 0.05 per mil in your blood of alcohol. This is the same thing. And yet you're deemed to be COVID-19 case. That means that you have a serious disease and you enter the records as a COVID-19 case.
So to put it in very simple language for people listening, what you're really saying is the PCR test is likely to massively exaggerate the number of people who are actually suffering symptoms of COVID-19.
Oh, yes, horribly. I mean, so much that it's criminal to say that these are COVID-19 cases. Because everyone in the world believes, oh my God, now we've had 250,000 COVID-19 cases in Germany. But in fact, you probably have had, I won't be able even to estimate, I can tell you that probably, and we've had 10,000 COVID-19 deaths. But of these 10,000 COVID-19 deaths, 90% were deaths due to other causes, like heart attack or stroke or whatever. It's just that they happen to test positive for this damn virus. With a PCR test that lights up the moment bits and pieces of this virus or another virus that is related to this virus has gotten into your throat,
So, Dr. Bhakdi, if this is the case, right, and of course, I trust what you're saying, then why is it we're going into lockdown? Because you can't be the only person to think this. I'm sure there's great swathes in the medical profession that do.
Well, to our great relief, the world's foremost epidemiologist, Professor John Ioannidis of Stanford, actually published a paper that was back 3 weeks ago. And this paper is peer-reviewed. It means that it's been seen by 3 to 4 experts, leading experts in the field. And the WHO put this paper on its bulletin, which means that the WHO accepts that this is the correct data. All right? And you go and read that paper, because John Ioannidis said what we said months ago, that this virus is no more deadly than a seasonal flu. And for people under 70, it is even less deadly than the seasonal flu. If you are under 70 your chances of dying with or because of this virus are less than 0.1%. All right? In fact, they are about 0.05%. This means that 5 out of 10,000 infected people may die because of the virus. 5 out of 10,000. This is so little that there's no reason to do anything. Not only the lockdown is nonsense, everything else is nonsense. Everything. And this is published. Everyone who's watching now should stop and think for a moment. Anyone can look at this paper. Anyone can look at the bulletin of WHO and should. And then they should come back and say, listen, since it is now internationally accepted that this virus is not the killer virus that one thought it was, and now, since the pandemic has actually come to an end, the epidemic does not exist in Europe, it does not exist in America, the number of cases and fatalities have almost gone down to zero. Anyone who says that anything is being done for any scientific reason is lying.
Do you have a business? Do you want to make the most of your business? Do you want to advertise online but don't know where to do it? Well, how about you advertise with trigonometry?
We have over 200,000 subscribers across the different platforms. We sometimes get up to 3 million views a month for our videos, and it's a great opportunity to showcase your product.
So if you want your product or business to stand out amidst all the nonsense that is happening, drop us a line at marketing@triggerpod.co.uk. That's marketing@triggerpod.co.uk, and we will do our very best to help your product stand out.
And when we say stand out, what we really mean is get cancelled. Dr. Bhakdi, I mean, this is a very scary moment for me listening to you, because I think you make a persuasive case. We've established that you're a medical professional who has, as I said, an established career. But at the same time, I'm hearing you talk about this and I'm going, well, you're telling me that we've just shut down the country for the second time here in the UK. Where you're telling me that quite possibly the results of the election in America, you're telling me that the whole world has changed because of something that isn't true.
That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. That's what we wrote in the book. And in that book, the last sentences of that book took us a long time to write, because we put everything we had in our soul into these words, that time has come for Homo sapiens to stand up and start becoming humans again. This scare, this global panic, has caused man to lose reason, to stop thinking, and to follow the Pied Piper's call. And we are being led to our downfall. This is the downfall of civilization. Yes. And if you do not stand up, take those masks off your face, grasp each other's hands again. No more social distancing. What absolute, pure, utter nonsense. Because of a virus that has been with us since the beginning of mankind. And start singing. The sound of the human voice is the only thing that is going to put this Pied Piper's madness, halt this Pied Piper's madness. So, and then what you do is you go back to your homes. Go back to your homes. You have been living in such a beautiful country. We have too. If you leave your beautiful homes, you can be sure someone else is going to move in there. So go back to your homes and go back to the old reality, not any new reality. We don't need any new reality. You know, the standard of our healthcare system is so good compared to countless other places in the world. Africa, Thailand, Asia. You've been doing very, very well. Of course, there's been flaws and shortcomings here and there and everywhere. But on the whole, we've been doing very, very well on this continent, in Europe. Life expectancy has been going up and up and up, and now it's going to go down because the healthcare system is falling to bits. You and we are not taking care of the people who need the care anymore because all we're doing is hysterically responding to a spook call.
And you say, Dr. Bhakdi, we're not taking care of the people that we need to take care of. Could you expand upon that? Who are the people that we need to take care of?
Well, the people who are really seriously ill, the people who are dement, need care, support, love. You know, I heard that dementia was the major comorbidity in Ireland. I heard this a few days ago. Second then to things like heart attack, stroke, cancer.
It's the same in the UK.
Same in the UK. It's because these people are not being taken care of anymore. You know, where the healthcare workers, they may be in quarantine, right? Because if someone tests positive, off they go. 2 weeks, bye-bye. And then you say, oh no, we have no one to take care of, you know. And then they die all alone because no one is allowed to visit them. You know, this is inhuman. It's inhuman, I tell you. I can tell you that my mother-in-law almost died because of this mask. She has cancer, terminal cancer, and she was forced to wear a mask to go shopping. And she broke down in the middle of the supermarket because someone with cancer is short of breath, her lung function was not good anymore, and they still made her wear this mask. By the way, just as the children in Bavaria who go to school are forced to wear these masks, which are known to be very, very harmful to them. They're being treated worse than animals. You know, in Germany, I think in England too, there's an animal protection law. Don't know whether you have this, but the Germans have an animal protection, which is really, really. The first paragraph is, no one may cause suffering to an animal without reason. Suffering in any way, physical suffering, whatever. All right. Now people are going around making our children suffer, and the elderly with their ailments. They suffer. They suffer horribly, but you're allowed to do so. The government passes a rule, not a rule, but they're going to pass a law and shorten your life. I also am not allowed to wear a mask because I am elderly. I'm 74, and I have a sort of borderline blood pressure. When I wear a mask, the CO2 behind the mask goes up, my pulse goes up, and my blood pressure goes up. So very rightly, I will not wear a mask because it shortens my life expectancy. All right. Am I talking so that everyone understands? Because if you do, ask yourself, are you also a borderline case of high blood pressure? Millions of British are, millions of Germans are. And when they put on their masks, they are shortening their lives. Okay?
You've brought up the issue of masks. What is your position on masks? Do they prevent the spread of this virus, which you've described as being similar to the flu in terms of its deadliness?
Of course, they do nothing of the sort. Masks have what mask wearing in public has never been shown to do anything except bad things. Nothing. Now, in the case of corona, the case is clear as the sun is shining at the moment. You know, what are the thoughts? What is the one thought behind all this mask wearing in public, all right, in normal public? I'm not talking about nursing homes. I'm not talking about hospitals, of course. That's a completely different issue. So if the next room were the homes of the elderly with pre-existing illnesses who have to be protected, there's nothing to be said against wearing masks to protect them in the nursing homes, in the hospitals, or whatever. I'm just talking about this room, which is the public, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What are the thoughts behind, all this? The thought is that you, who are not ill, and I, who am not ill, may be spreading the virus without knowing. So I may be spreading, if we were in the same room, to you, and then you would get COVID-19, which is the illness, all right? Now, listen very, very carefully. There has been one single publication in the literature, in the world literature, that makes it probable that if I have contacted that virus and I'm going to be ill in 2 or 3 days, that in this short term, before I start coughing, okay, I may in fact give the virus to another person. All right? But that publication very clearly showed that this is a very rare event. It occurs rarely. And more important still, when it occurs, the fellow who gets the virus from me will never, ever get COVID-19. Never, ever get the serious illness. He may have a cough, or he may not be ill at all. He'll just get the virus and have the virus in his body for a few days, and then that will be bye-bye virus. All right? So it has never been shown at all that pre-symptomatic people will cause the disease in others. Am I being clear?
You're being very clear, also very scary, given everything that's happening.
Yeah.
But let me pick up on
one last thing. Why? The question is why, and this is where I have to speak my heart, because people have to understand this. All right, the PCR test. You stick this stupid swab down into the throat or nose, pull it out, and put it in the machine. And I told you this machine is not calibrated in any way to say there's enough virus to cause disease, okay? In the first place. In the second place, what you don't realize is that the concentration, the dose of virus that is sticking in your throat is at least 1,000 times higher than the stuff that comes out of your mouth when you start speaking. Even if you have a cough, and this has been shown for another coronavirus, the concentration of the coronavirus that comes out, the dose, is at least 1,000 times lower than what you have there. This means that if you cough the virus into another person's nose, the dose that he's getting is very, very low. Now, I don't know whether you can understand this, people without, any basic training or schooling in infectious diseases, but there is such a thing as the infectious dose that has to be met until you contact the disease. And there's another thing. For viruses like corona and flu, the more virus you breathe in, the more seriously ill you get. Okay, it's a matter of dose. The more vodka you drink, the drunker you get. But that is the reason why someone who does not have symptoms simply cannot get enough virus out into the air to make you seriously ill. It's so simple. And if, of course, you go into the next room where the elderly with pre-existing illnesses are, who are very, very vulnerable towards the virus, yes, then something bad could really occur. So don't do it. No one who has a cough should go to see someone who's seriously ill because he's dement, or he has a heart attack, or he's a stroke, or whatever you want, cancer. And even if you don't have symptoms, you go and visit someone who's seriously ill, you may want to wear a mask. Yes, nothing to say against that. But what we should not do is to have all our children masked here, to have all our elderly who need fresh air to stay alive wear masks. All right.
And Doctor, I mean, what you're saying is very, very worrying, because we've just entered the second day of a national lockdown. We've locked down the entire country. Why is it that our experts are saying we need to lock down? The NHS will collapse unless we lock down. This is a very, very serious virus. All the stories that we've been told. Why is it that these experts are saying this?
I don't know. But not all experts are saying this, by the way. I just told you that John Ioannidis, the leading expert in the world, is saying something completely different. Yeah. And, mind you, there is such a thing as the Great Barrington Declaration. I don't know whether you've heard about this.
We have.
Okay, so there's, thank God, a professor from Oxford and one from Stanford and one from Harvard. 3 wrote this declaration. And you probably will know that Michael Levitt, the Nobel Prize winner, also supports this declaration. And this declaration has now been signed by, I haven't looked at the last numbers, but the last time I looked, there were 35,000 physicians and scientists who had signed this declaration. I was one of them, of course. And this declaration has been signed by a total of at least 700,000 people. 700,000 people. So don't come telling me that all the experts are saying what you people are doing in Great Britain and not what the Germans are doing here, because certainly the voices, the dissenting voices, are now much, much larger in number than the voices that are trying to put this whole agenda through. In Germany, the major physicians, what is it called? The different associations of surgeons, of internal medicine, they have also signed this declaration, a German one, saying that they do not approve of the lockdown and that it's not in order. So we're looking at hundreds of thousands of experts and physicians around the world who are all saying the same thing. And it really is scary that despite this agenda is being driven.
Dr. Bhakdi, so what is going on? Why are we, when I turn on my television, which is rare nowadays, but if I do, I look at the Prime Minister of this country, the leader of this country, flanked by the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Officer, who are telling us that if we don't lock down, our national healthcare system is going to collapse. 4,000 people a day are going to die. Medics are going to have to triage patients and decide who lives and who dies. If you don't agree with this, you're killing granny, you're heartless, wear a mask, stay at home, save lives.
Yes, okay. Wasn't this what we heard 8 months ago? It's a sort of a repeat. It's a repeat, right?
Yes.
So 8 months ago, everyone believed it and everyone conformed to everything that was being done and then was done. And it turned out that the dissenting voices at that time we were one of the very few who dissented. John Ioannidis too. He also stood up. That was middle of March. I know exactly when everything happened. Okay. And it turned out that John and we were saying the same thing and saying that all these model calculations were probably not correct. And it turned out that they were all wrong. They were wrong. And everything that your Prime Minister Boris Johnson said and our Merkel said was wrong. And now they're repeating it again. So why should you believe them? Why should anyone believe them? Especially since what they're saying now is untrue. It's not true that there's a second wave. They're not true at all. They're rigging the numbers and they're falsifying the numbers and they're telling lies. This is the simple truth. You see, as you may know, this PCR test becomes more and more unreliable the fewer cases there really are. So if you go around testing people without reason, without symptoms, as has been done over the last months, you are asking for trouble in a big manner because the number of positive cases will simply correlate with the number of tests that you perform, because there are always false positive tests. False positives because this test is not perfect. In fact, it is very imperfect. But on the basis of false positive tests alone, you can say that, you know, when other coronaviruses, when the flu virus is underway, which is the case now, at least 2% of those tests are wrong in the first place. So if you do, 1 million tests, then 20,000 false positive cases are going to be put into the records. And these 20,000 people are going to be sent into quarantine, and they don't have the virus. They just have a falsely positive test. So anyone with any inkling of epidemiology knows. Now, I'm not a professional epidemiologist. I'm a microbiologist, but I learned this. You see, when the number of cases falls below a certain level, you must stop testing people without symptoms. You just have to. Because if you test them, you're going to get more false positives than true positives. And this is what's happening right now. So what Merkel is saying, where we've got 3,000 positives yesterday or 4,000 positives yesterday. So I said, of course you will. You did so many tests that of course you get these false positives. So what are you telling the guys? Why don't you tell them that the percentage of positives has never gone significantly above, well, it was around 2 to 3%, and now one day it went up to 4% or 5%. However, it turned out in retrospect that many labs in Germany, they were creating artifacts in the lab because they weren't performing the tests properly. So we had, a cluster of 60 cases down in Bavaria, in a region, and the people were completely healthy. And they said, we don't believe this. We want to be retested. And actually, you should retest every test which is not clearly positive, but that is not being done either in Germany. People just sent to quarantine. I guess it's the same with you, by the way. But you must demand a retest. So these said, we want to be retested. And it turned out that 58 were negative. They were all falsely, because the lab was and the lab then admitted that they had used the wrong reagent, they were short of reagents, they were short of manpower, they had no one to do the tests, and it was all wrong.
And Dr. Bhakdi, I remember this was in April time. I remember I woke up one day and I was lying in my bed and I was thinking, there's only 3 ways to get out of this situation, really. There's number one, we carry on doing what we're doing, and eventually somehow the virus will dissipate, but I didn't see that happening. There's option two, which is we just open everything up and we try herd immunity. Or there's option three, which is we have a vaccine. But when I was reading your book, the vaccine isn't going to be a panacea, which is what a lot of people have been claiming.
No. Let's go to scenario two, this business about immunity, which we have really gone to lengths to describe in the book. And anyone who's read the book and read the chapter on immunity and vaccination will know much, much more than Boris Johnson or Merkel or whatever you want. Because the whole business surrounding immunity and vaccination is fuzzy. There's very, very few people who have clear ideas about why we are immune to a virus like the coronavirus or the flu virus. And we describe in the book that there are two arms of immunity. One is the antibodies, which everyone knows about. So the antibodies prevent the attachment of the virus to the cell. The antibodies catch the virus, so the virus can't go to the cell, to my head. But these antibodies fight on a one-to-one, man-to-man. So if there's one virus, you need, a few antibodies, let's say 2 antibodies to stop it. But then the antibodies are bound. So if the second virus comes, it can't be stopped. Obviously, a matter of numbers, all right? And something that even Boris Johnson should understand. Should.
You're very kind to our Prime Minister. We are less so.
No, I think that he will, if he cares to listen. You see, the trouble about these people is they know everything already, so they don't have to listen to guys like me. But maybe they should listen to other guys like John Ioannidis. Or anyway. So the second problem is, what I'm trying to say is, even if you have antibodies, so you were vaccinated and you get antibodies, they're there, true. You can only be protected if the number of viruses is low. If that's simple. So this whole business about an immunity, health pass is stupid, because that pass doesn't tell you how many viruses you can deal with and whether you're going to be able to deal with virus someone coughs in your face, all right? The second very, very difficult thing about these antibodies is that, you get immunized, then the antibodies come and are there and may protect you from the virus. Yes, you're protected. But as months go by, the levels of antibodies just drop. You can't keep them up. Your immune system doesn't do work unless it's necessary, and it just stops, because these antibodies have to be produced, and they have other things to do than produce antibodies that are not being used, all right? So after 2 or 3 months, even though you have this passport that says you are immune, you're not. And everyone wants to believe it. They are rather ignorant. And I cannot imagine that Boris Johnson doesn't understand this. Now, then what happens is, and this is happening all the time, you see, because we do have antibodies against the old coronaviruses, this is known. And these antibodies are able to catch the new virus to a certain extent, not as well as the old virus. And that's why you can still get infected with the new virus. That's why new infections do occur. However, what happens after the new virus now enters the cell? My head is the cell. Okay, this is the first time my head has become a cell, because it goes into my head, it multiplies. What happens is that as the virus is being multiplied in my head, so that more viruses come out of my head and go to your head and infect your cells, all right? waste products of the virus are just fall out. And these waste products, my cell, my head, shovels out through my nose and hangs like my glasses. So the waste products are now displayed on my head. Right. It's the first time I've done this, okay? So when this happens, the second arm of the immune system comes out, and these are the killer lymphocytes. It sounds good, doesn't it? If anyone, after having seen this, thinks that the killer lymphocytes in their body are made to kill bacteria or to kill viruses, then they have to go back and have a look at the book and at this video. Because the killer viruses, what they see, now where's the killer virus? This is the killer lymphocyte. My killer lymphocyte sees the waste product, sees the eyeglasses on your head, and says, aha, something fishy is going on in the head. And I recall having seen these glasses before, because the glasses of the old coronavirus look like this. A little bit different. But still quite similar. And killer lymphocytes have long-term memory. They have a memory that goes on for years. So if they saw this virus last year, and this virus comes around this year or next year, they will still see it, you see. And what does a killer lymphocyte want to do when it sees the product of a virus that it recognizes should not have been produced? It tries to kill me. And in fact, it will come close to my head. And then what happens is the kiss of death. This virus will kiss the cell, which is supposed to kill, which is the own cell, the cell of my respiratory tract that dares to make the virus. Okay? And then after the kiss of death has caused my head to die, this killer lymphocyte goes away, and it can kiss a second time and a third time, you see? So the killer lymphocyte is really very, very, very powerful. And that's why, in the end, one killer lymphocyte can kill many, many virus-infected cells, and 1 million killer lymphocytes, and you have these, can kill so many virus-infected cells. It doesn't kill the other cells. It's only the cells with this waste product of the virus. And then you get up and go to work, if you have work, after Boris Johnson has put so work. All right? And that's the end of the story.
And Dr. Bhakdi as well, they're talking about, creating this vaccine, but there's never been a vaccine created against the coronavirus, has there?
I hope not. They were trying to create one against the SARS virus, and it failed dismally. It doesn't work. Look, the thing is this. 80 to 90% of the people who really contracted this virus did not become seriously ill because the infected cells were killed on time. They were infected, but the cells were killed on time, and the fire was extinguished. The factory was shattered and broken. So what we're saying is that 80 to 90% of you have sufficient immunity. What you want to call this, I don't care. Let's call it background immunity so we don't start quarreling. This is not herd immunity, it's background immunity due to your lymphocytes that recognize the old coronaviruses. We can stop at that. Now, this background immunity probably is there because lymphocytes in your body are present that recognize these eyeglasses. All right, we've come this far. The question was, when we wrote the book, do your killer lymphocytes really recognize the waste products of the new virus? All right. And we were just absolutely delighted when this publication appeared. A string of publications have now appeared since July that say, yes, 80 to 90% of the people running around here do have these killer lymphocytes in their blood. Well, 80% in their blood. And all right, there are only the lymphocytes in your blood are only less than 10% of the lymphocytes in your body, because over 90% of the other lymphocytes are in your spleen and your lymph nodes, and they just don't happen to be there when the blood is drawn and you want to test them, okay? So if 80% of the individuals already have killer lymphocytes in their blood that recognize these waste products, then you can bet your life that the other 20% have them in their spleen and lymph nodes. You just have to wait until tomorrow for them to do their patrol, you see?
Yes. Oh, Dr. Bhakdi, why did you say the vaccines don't work for coronaviruses?
Well, there are two reasons, If you go around putting a vaccine in your body, let's now take the gene-based vaccine that AstraZeneca is developing, and AstraZeneca has already sold to Merkel 54 million doses of the Astra vaccine, gene-based vaccine, have been reserved by our chancellor with our taxpayers' money. Okay, a vaccine that is damn dangerous, because if you put the vaccine in, then the gene is injected into your body, the gene of the virus, and this gene is supposed to make your cells produce the product against which, so produce the hands of the virus against which antibodies should be made. But as these viral hands are being made, waste products are also going to be created. And these waste products, again, will be, the waste products of the hand will be similar to the waste products of the old coronaviruses, okay? So what happens then is that you have to be afraid that those people who already have the killer lymphocytes that recognize this will go and think that the cell that is making
they're going to start destroying healthy cells.
You're going to start attacking healthy cells.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can't prove this has happened. I just know that so many of those vaccinees got such serious side effects, pain, swelling, fever, headache, joint ache, muscle ache, that the protocol of this AstraZeneca trial had to be changed, which is not allowed actually, so that the next vaccinees received paracetamol, high dose, to alleviate them of the symptoms. And then the trial went on. But then two very serious side effects came. This was sort of transverse myelitis, which is, the spinal cord gets inflamed. No one knows why, but there are many reasons why one may think that an auto attack has been started by the lymphocytes on the nerves. Now, I won't go into this. It doesn't go the straight way. There might be turns around the corner, but it may be. So this is the one thing that makes the vaccine dangerous. The second thing that makes it dangerous is that, let's say you got past the vaccination, and now you have your antibodies, but you also have reawoken those killer lymphocytes to this virus and to the head. Okay, so this is like when you have a boxer, a coach in the ring. You have a round, and now he's coached you again, so you become stronger and more ready to fight. Now, when the real virus comes and overcomes the few antibodies that you have, and you get really infected, you will have so many killer lymphocytes ready that they might overdo their job, okay? And this would be an immune response dependent enhancement of immune enhancement, which ends in autoaggression again. You have an overdose of immune response. I don't know whether I make myself clear.
No, you've made it absolutely clear. I mean, the question that I want to ask you, Dr. Bhakdi, and it's not a particularly fair one, but would you take the vaccine?
Of course not. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Look, if you are under 70, your chances of dying because of this vaccine are minuscule. 5 out of 10,000 infected people under 70. Now, in order for a vaccine to get licensed, I don't know whether to get approved, it has to be shown to be effective. How do you show a vaccine to be effective? You have to show that it saves lives. But if you're losing 5 out of 10,000 lives, how are you going to show that that number is going to be reduced by a vaccine? You can't. You will never reach statistical significance, because if it goes down from 5 to 3, it's not significant. All right, sorry. So forget it. Why should I want to be vaccinated?
That's a very, very powerful point, Dr. Bhakdi. We're starting to run out of time. Let me ask you one more question before we ask you our very final question, which is about lockdown. Now, you've made yourself very clear you don't think we should be doing lockdowns. You don't think we should be doing anything, actually, in dealing with this virus, because you believe it's no worse than the flu.
I don't believe I know it. It's been shown. There are data.
I'm not disputing it. I'm just trying to simplify it for our viewers and listeners. That is your position. In terms of the lockdown, then, obviously, governments all over the world have decided to do that. And according to our government's own estimates, as a result of lockdown, up to 200,000 people may die from deaths as a result of lockdown. That is, people not being diagnosed with cancer on time, heart disease, depression, suicide, mental health problems. You can go down the list of all the different causes of death. And then, of course, there's economic recession, which leads to poverty, which also kills people. Suicide, right? So, do you feel that the governments have made a decision that is essentially, in attempting, as they claim, to save lives, actually what they're doing is killing way more people than they're saving?
Of course they are. And I can tell you that lawyers around the world are now going to bring thousands of cases to court and to bring those people to justice. I know that the first cases are being filed next week here in Germany. And I know that the British are also going to be taken to court. I hope the right ones are going to be taken to court, and I hope they're going to be punished, because what they are doing is criminal. It is simply criminal. This is what not only I am saying, but thousands and thousands of people are saying. And it's not a matter of belief. We know that people have died. We know that people are dying around the world because of these lockdown measures. Millions of people in India have starved to death and are starving to death. And it's simply inhuman to do what they are doing. It is inhuman.
And I think that is a very, very powerful point to end the interview on. Dr. Bhakdi, thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it. We always end our interviews with the last question, which is always the same, which is?
What's the one thing we're not talking about that we really should be?
We should be talking about why and how has our society allowed these things to happen? How and why? And we must strive to get answers to those so that this will never happen again.
Dr. Bhakdi.
Thank you very much. And of course, before we let you go, again, we appreciate your time very much. For people who want to familiarize themselves with your argument and your book, the book is called COVID False Alarm: where can people buy it and have a read of it? And also, if people can follow you online somewhere and read your thoughts, let us know that as well.
Well, I think you can buy the book anywhere in any bookstore in England now. It's called Corona, false alarm.
Corona, sorry.
Yes, it's being distributed worldwide. It's also being translated into 8 other languages, by the way, including Chinese, which is appearing next week. So there is a demand for this book, and we hope many people read it. We're not earning from this book. We just want people to have knowledge in their head and understanding for a subject that is not really that difficult. So it's been written in a way that anyone can and will understand.
Corona false alarm. Dr. Bhakdi, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you all for watching. We will see you very soon with another episode or a live stream. All of them go out 7 p.m. UK time.
Take care and see you soon, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell button next to the subscribe button so you get notified when a video comes out, and follow us on all the social media @TriggerPod.
And also leave us a nice review on iTunes and spread the word.